الحمد لله رب العالمين له الحمد الحسن والثناء الجميل وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له يقول الحق وهو يهدي السبيل وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Inshallah ta'ala, today we're going to start the essential course with the subject Aqeedah. We're not going to do a book. It's only meant to be an introduction to Aqeedah. What does Aqeedah mean? And what are the stages and the development and the formation that Aqeedah went through? Inshallah ta'ala, the class is going to be an interaction. So at any time, if you feel that you haven't understood a point that I've said, you're more than happy, you're more than welcome, inshallah ta'ala, to ask, inshallah ta'ala. I'll be standing up a lot of the time, writing on the board every point that I say, I will write inshallah. But I first write in Arabic, and then I'll write in English. Reason is because if I do define or translate a word, and somebody here inshallah ta'ala has a better translation, we can benefit from one another inshallah. The class is going to be on these 2 points inshallah today. We're going to take Ta'arif al-Aqeedah. What does Aqeedah mean? What's the definition of Aqeedah? And the second inshallah ta'ala is it's going to be Al-Asma' al-Ukhra, other names that are given to the science Aqeedah. Is it only known as Aqeedah, or does it have other names? That's all we're going to take today. Let's start with the first one, which is the definition of Aqeedah. What is the definition of Aqeedah? Now I want you to all understand something very important. Anything that you define, whatever it may be, there's always a linguistic definition and there's a technical definition. Remember this. Every single thing that is defined, there is always a linguistic definition and there is a what? A technical definition. For example, what's the linguistic definition of salah? Is there anyone here know? Salah. Linguistically, not in the religion. To connect. Huh? To connect. Dua. The Arabs used to use this word, salah, before the Prophet ﷺ came, before Islam came, they used to use this word, salah. It had a meaning for them. The word salah meant, to the Arabs, supplication. It meant dua. That's the linguistic usage of the word. But when Islam came, it added things on to the definition. So it is dua, but it's not only dua. There is standing, there's ruku', there's sujood. The du'as are done at a particular place. Are we all together? So this is vital to understand. Everything has a linguistic meaning and a technical meaning. So first what we're going to do inshallah ta'ala is we're going to take the definition of Aqeedah in the language. According to the Arabic language, what does the word Aqeedah mean? Linguistically, according to the Arabs, what do they use as the word Aqeedah? After following up the word Aqeedah, I have come to the conclusion that Aqeedah does not leave 4 definitions. There's only 4 usages that the Arabs used it in. Remember this, okay? So there are 4 usages of the word Aqeedah in the Arabic language. We're going to go through one after the other. And it's in the notes that were given to you. The first one is, the first usage from the 4 usages is ar-rabtu. Okay, alif lam Ra, ba and ta. Ar-rabtu. What does ar-rabtu mean? It means to tie something, to make a knot. In the Arabic language, the word al-aqeedah, lughatan, in the Arabic language is 4 usages only. 4. The Arabs use it in one of these 4. The first one is ar-rabtu. It's to tie something, tying something. When you take a rope and you tie with another rope, the Arabs say, call that aqd. It's the same word, aqeedah. Are we all together? That's the first usage. That's the first usage. What's the first usage? Ar-rabtu, to tie something. The second usage is ahd. Al-ahd. What does that mean? A covenant. Allah used it in the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil-uqud. Uqud. Uqud in that ayah comes from the word Aqeedah. Oh, those of you who believe, fulfill the covenants that you made. So the second usage for the word Aqeedah in the Arabic language is what? Ahd, promise, covenant that you make is Aqeedah. That's the second usage according to the Arabs. That's how they use it. The third usage is al-mulazamah. Is to be consistent with something. To be consistent in something and continuous in something and to not stop it. The Arabs, they use the word aqd as mulazama, continuation, consistency. That's the third usage that they use. The fourth one is at-tawqeed, emphasis. The fourth one is at-tawqeed, emphasis. And that's the one that's used. That's the one that is used when it comes to marriage. Aqd. We've just done an aqd in this transaction. Or this aqd in marriage. It's tawqeed, emphasis that you're going to fulfill your side of the promise. So according to the Arabs, Aqeedah means these 4. Al-rabtu, al-ahdu, al-mulazamah and al-tawqeed. Before we move on, does everybody understand that point? This is the Arabs, what they mean by al-aqeedah. Does that make sense? Is that crystal clear to everybody? Does everyone here understand? Now we're going to move on to the second type of definition, which is what? The technical definition. Here we mean technical according to the Sharia. How does the Sharia use it? The Sharia has 2 usages of the word al-aqeedah. So again, this was lughatan, and the second one is called what? Istilahan. Istilahan. Now, istilahan means what? Technically. According to the Sharia, what does it mean? The Sharia uses the word aqeedah in a general usage and a specific usage. Am and khas. In the Sharia there's a general usage and there's a specific usage. So what do we say? Istilahun am, istilah khas. The Sharia uses it in 2 ways. The language is how much? 4. But in the Sharia it's used in what? 2 usages. The first one is general, which is am. And the second one is khas. Am means what? Aqeedah is used for Islam, and also Aqeedah is used for anything that's not Islam as well. The Buddhists, we say their Aqeedah. The Christians, we say their Aqeedah. The Jews, we say their Aqeedah. This is the general usage. Aqeedatul Nasara, the Aqeedah of the Christians. Aqeedatul Yahud, the belief of the Jews. That's the general usage. Are we all together? The second usage is specific to Islam. The second usage is what? It's specific to what? Specific to Al-Islam. And it means the following. The 6 articles of faith. Does everyone here know the 6 articles of faith? The second usage is specific to Islam. And it means the 6 articles of faith. أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشر. Everyone knows here that, right? The 6 articles of faith. Are we all together, brothers? And 3 extra things here now. What are the 3 extra things? The issue pertaining to al-Iman. What does Iman mean? And its definition. Are we all together? That's Aqeedah according to the Sharia. What does Iman mean? When does a person become a mu'min? When does the Iman increase? What makes the Iman increase? When does the Iman reduce? They speak about it in books of Aqeedah, right? As-Sahaba, companions, and their status. Second one is what? As-Sahabas, and the companions, and that which is pertaining to them. And the third one is Al-Imama, the Muslim leader, and the relationship between the people and their leader, and obeying and listening and submitting. Those 3 are dealt with in what? Books of Aqeedah. If you study books of Aqeedah, what do you learn? The 6 articles of faith. And tu'mina billahi, what does it mean? Wa malaikati, what does it mean? Wa kutubi, what does it mean? All the 6 articles of faith. Once you finish that, at the ending they add these 3 to it. What does Iman mean? Al-Imanu qawlun wa amalun wa i'tiqadun yazidu bil ta'ati wa yanqusu bil ma'siyah. Iman is speech, it's actions. It increases and it decreases. The companions, are they all the same? Do they have different levels? How should we be towards the companions? Are the companions infallible? They don't do mistakes? Or do they do mistakes? All of that, Ahlul Sunnah, they deal with it in books of I'tiqad. Third one is the issue of Imama, the Muslim leader. How should the people be towards him? What are the responsibilities that the people have towards him, and etc. All 3 of those are also dealt in books of Aqeedah. Are we all together? This is the specific type of usage. Are we all together? And the general type of usage is what? The Aqeedah of every belief and every group. Does that make sense? What we've now done, walillahi alhamdu wal minnah, is we've what? We've defined, we fulfilled the first part of today's class, which is what? To define. It's to define Aqeedah. Before we move on to the next one, which is going to be the longest one, has everybody understood? Can I, okay, repeat it. Naam. So let me say this again. Aqeedah is its definition is linguistically and what? That's not just for Aqeedah, brothers. It's not specific to Aqeedah only. It's anything. Everything in the Sharia that's used, any term in the Sharia that you use, there's a technical and there's also a linguistic definition for it. Are we all together? You have to know both. What's the linguistic usage? And also what's the technical usage? وَلِذَلِكَ the scholars, they say, to place a ruling on something, what do you first have to do? You have to know the things. You have to know the definition of that thing. الحكم على شيء فرع عن تصوره. To place a ruling on something, first of all, you have to know what it is. Are we all together? How can you say my Aqeedah is right if you don't know what Aqeedah means? صح? You have to know what it means. What's its definition? What does Aqeedah want from you? What do you study in Aqeedah? What is the difference between Aqeedah and fiqh? Are we all together? So Aqeedah, you have to understand it linguistically, and you also have to understand it technically. It's not enough to know it linguistically. You have to know when the Sharia came, it used that word, but what did it mean by it? It's important that you understand it. So we found that linguistically the word Aqeedah, it means four things. Al-Rabtu, which means to tie something. To get a rope, tie it. That tying that you're doing is called Aqd. Number two, Al-Ahd. Ahd is a covenant and a promise that you're making. Al-Mulazama means what? To be consistent and continuous with something, right? And the fourth one is what? Consistent and continuation. Who can see a pattern that's here? There's a pattern here. The pattern is Aqeedah was used linguistically in two meanings, really. Something that's ma'nawi. I don't want to go too heavy. I just want to show you something very important. And something which is hissi. What does it mean? To tie something is tangible. Something you can see, right? Somebody ties something in front of you, can you not see it? Can you not touch it? So it's something you can touch, it's tangible. Can you touch a covenant and a promise that a person made? So this is ma'nawi, but it's tying a promise. All of them are tying something. Are we all together? But some are tangible, some are not tangible. Mulazama means you're connecting yourself to somebody or something. You're tying yourself to something. It's not tangible. Are we all together? A tawqeed, emphasis, you're tying a promise and that you're going to stick to this contract that you're making with this person. But again, it's not tangible. Are we all together? So the only one that's hissi is a rabt. And the other four are some things that you're tying but they are not tangible. Are we all together? ولذلك some of the أئمة اللغة like Ibn Faris and others in his kitab معجم مقاييس اللغة, it's a big dictionary book. He only says that it's only these usage, either hissi or ma'nawi. That's a side benefit. Then we said technically, the word Aqeedah means a general usage and a what? A specific usage. So a general and a specific. The general usage, I said it means the belief of every group. It's the belief of every group. Whatever any group believes, that's the Aqeedatul Budiyya, Aqeedatul Nasara, Aqeedatul Yahud. Whatever somebody believes, the Aqeedah. That's the general usage. But there's a specific usage. Like today when you were coming here and you were saying to yourself, I'm going to study Aqeedah, you were talking about the general usage or the specific usage? Specific usage. You mean Aqeedatul Islam I'm learning. Sah? And it means these six. So the articles of faith, which is أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره. You study that in the Aqeedah. What does it mean to believe in Allah? What does it actually mean to believe in the angels? What does it mean to believe in the books? What does it actually mean to believe in the messengers, the day of judgment? What does it mean to believe in the qada and the qadar? The good of it and the bad of it. What does it actually mean? You study that in the books of Aqeedah. Are we all together? Once the scholars, they finish talking about that, this is called mulhaq. Mulhaq means they connect it to the ending of books of Aqeedah. The reason why they did that, the scholars, is because there were coming out groups, so they wanted to explain the creed in which the Prophet was upon and the companions, to stay away from these people who are coming. So the issue of Iman, the first deviated group came, the Khawarij. So the scholars and the companions and they had to explain what Iman means, because they were taking the people out of their religion straight away. And they were saying, you're not a believer, you're a disbeliever. So the scholars and the people of knowledge, they said, okay, you know what, Iman needs to be defined. And when does a person exit Iman? Are we all together? And then the Shia came regarding the companions. So then scholars wrote books on the companions and their status. And then Imama, the Mu'tazila came, who wanted to go against the leader. If he done anything, go against it, uprise. So they wrote books. Are we all together? All of that was caught up on the books of I'tiqad because groups were coming. Does that make sense? Are we all on the same page? So this is Aqeedah, and this is any book of Aqeedah that you open, that's what you're going to study from it. These 6, with these 3, how much does that make? 9 points of I'tiqad that you study. Are we all together, brothers? Can we now move on to the second point? Yeah? Has everyone understood? Are we all on the same page? Does anyone have any question? No one? Are you all sure? Because I'm going to ask questions later. Okay. Now we're going to go into what part now? Alhamdulillah, we've defined Aqeedah lughatan wa istilahan, linguistically and what? And technically. We're now going to move on to this subject is not only known as Aqeedah. It's not known only as, it's got other names. So we're now going to move on, other names given to Aqeedah. Before I move on, there's 3 points that are very relevant that I have to mention. Are we all together? 1. Point number 1. This is important points. So you just write this as what? 3 important points. Number 1. Aqeedah, as to mean those 6 points that we mentioned here, and those 9, is not used in the Quran. Nor is it used in the Sunnah. The Quran and the Sunnah use the word Aqeedah linguistically only. Only those four that we said. Are we all together? So the word Aqeedah in the Quran and in the Sunnah, it didn't use it as the 6 articles of faith and the 9 and the other 3 that we mentioned, the 9 that we just mentioned, the 9 that I mentioned here. Do you remember? The Quran didn't use it like that, nor did the Sunnah. The Quran only used the linguistic meaning. Are we all together? Either al-rabtu, which was the first one that we mentioned, or al-ahdu, or al-tawqid, or al-mulazama. So you won't find Aqeedah, that term, in the Quran, nor would you find that term in the Sunnah in that way. That's point number 1. I'm coming to a point, inshallah, I want you to understand. Point number 2. The Sahabas and the Tabi'een and the Tabi'ut Tabi'een did not use that term, Aqeedah, like that. So the Sahabas didn't, the Tabi'een didn't, and the Tabi'ut Tabi'een didn't. So that's the second point. The third point is, who was the first to use it? Yeah? The first person to use it was the noble Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi rahimahullah. Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi, who died the year 320 something. He was the first person to coin this term Aqeedah as to mean the belief and the core articles of faith for the believer. And then after him came great Imams like Abu Qasim Hibatullah al-Lalaka'i, Al-Imam Abu Qasim al-Taymi in his Kitab al-Hujjah fi Bayan al-Mahajjah, and also Al-Imam al-Bayhaqi. You have all of that written on your notes. It's all written for you. They came, and what did they do? They used that term. And ever since after that, the term Aqeedah was used in that way. Does everybody understand this? The Quran, like, he uses another term, and the Sunnah uses another term, which is the term Al-Iman. The Quran and the Sunnah uses what term? Al-Iman. Now I want you to understand the point. Scholars, they say, La mushahata fi istilah. It's not a problem if you ignore the word Aqeedah and you use the word Iman, la bas, because they both mean the same. The reality is what's after it. Are we all together? You don't get closer to Allah by the term Aqeedah. Okay? What is it that the scholars want from it, lakin? It's in your heart, what are you connecting? Because remember the word Aqeedah, what does it mean? It's what you connect in that tying that you're doing, that rabt. You're tying your heart, a belief. That's all that matters to them. The term, ignore it if you want to. Use Iman if you want. But what the concept behind it is what they're looking at. Are we all together? Does that make sense? That's important. You won't find some terms in the Sharia, but the scholars used it min babi taqreeb, to get it close to you. صح? If you study grammar, you study mubtada, khabar, fi'il, fa'il. You're not going to find that in the Quran or on the Sunnah, are you? But it's to get a science close to you. That's an important point that I want you to all understand, inshallah ta'ala. Let's now go on to the second point, which is al-asma' al-ukhra al-muradifati al-ilm al-aqeedah. Other names that are given to ilm al-aqeedah that the scholars gave. Other names that the scholars gave. The first one is at-tawheed. The first one is what? It's at-tawheed. What does tawheed actually mean? It comes from the verbal noun. The verbal noun in Arabic, which is wahhada. Wahhada. Yuwahhidu. Comes from that word. Wahhada. Yuwahhidu. Tawheedan. Comes from that verbal noun of wahhada. Yuwahhidu. Tawheedan. Does that make sense? That's the root word that it comes from. What does it mean? To make Allah one. That's what it means. Linguistically, what does it mean? It means one. To make something one. That's what it means in the Arabic language. For example, before I go, Tawheed stands on two pillars. What does it stand on? Two pillars. Without these two pillars, this is not called Tawheed. If one of those pillars are missing, this is not called at-Tawheed. What is it? Isbat and Nafi. What does Isbat and Nafi mean? It means negation and affirmation. Negation and what? ما دخل إلا زيد. No one entered except Zayd. This is This is negation and this is affirmation, okay? I was just testing you guys. Isbat is what? Isbat is affirmation. And nafi is negation, to negate something. These are the two pillars that it stands on. In other words, what we're saying in Tawheed is what? Ibadah, worship, it's for nobody. That's the negation. Hey, except Allah, affirmation. You see that? So you can't just say, worship is for Allah. That's just affirmation. Worship is for Allah is not Tawheed. You haven't still come with Tawheed. What do you have to say? Worship is not for anyone except Allah. You have to negate it from everything else and then affirm it for who? For Allah. Does that make sense? Those are the two pillars it stands on. Nafyun wa ithbat. Ithbat means affirmation and nafy means negation. Now the question here is, what is it that we single Allah with? Can we single Him? That's no doubt. We negate everything else and we specify something for Him. But what is it that we negate from other things and we only specify for Him? What is it that we give to Him alone? Yeah? Huh? Worship, yeah? Is that it? Lordship, yeah? Is that it? 3 things the scholars they say. When we're affirming something for Allah alone, Him alone, no one else, they say it's 3 things. Number 1 is what? You are singling Allah in the actions that Allah does. Allah has actions. He does things. He creates. He provides. He sustains. Those actions that He does, Allah Azza wa Jal, what do? We single Him in it. We don't give it to anyone. Allah is the only creator. Allah is the only sustainer. Allah is the only provider. We're singling Allah in what? Not worship. Lordship. I want to make it easy because some people don't even understand the term Lordship or Rububiyyah. They don't understand it. It's singling Allah in the actions Allah does. Does that make sense? That's the first one, which in simple terms is called Rububiyyah. Rububiyyah means Allah's actions. What does Rububiyyah mean? The actions Allah does, subhanahu wa ta'ala. We single Him in it. We don't give the actions to anyone. That's Rububiyyah. The second one is what? Al-Uluhiyyah. What's Uluhiyyah? The actions that you do. You makhluk, you the created one. You're singling Allah in your actions. Which is when you pray, who do you pray for? Only Him. When you fast, who do you fast for? Only Him. When you slaughter, who do you slaughter for? Only Him. You single Allah in what? In your actions. What you do. You don't associate partners with Him in that. That's the what? That's the second. What's the third? Allah has names and He has attributes. You don't give anyone those names that He has. Ar-Rahman is His name. The characteristics that's in it is what? Ar-Rahmah, mercy. There's no one who's merciful like Allah Azza wa Jal. Are we all together? And the third one is Allah's names and attributes. These are the 3 that you do tawheed in. One more time. In the actions that Allah does, His rububiyyah, you single Him in it. If somebody asks you, who creates? Allah alone creates. Who sustains? Allah alone sustains. Who provides? Allah alone provides. Who governs and controls the universe? Allah alone does. That's singling Allah in what? In the actions that He does, subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second part is what? The actions that you come with. If you've now affirmed Allah is the only one who created you, Allah is the only one who provides for you, Allah is the one who sustains you, now worship Him alone then. Are we all together? Am I making sense here? Worship Him alone. وَلِذَلِكَ This is where kuffar of Quraysh and Nabiullah Muhammad, this is where everything went separate. Kuffar of Quraysh singled Allah in the actions Allah does. They did that. They said, Allah, He's the creator. Allah, yeah, He's the sustainer. Allah is the only provider. But when they were told, okay, worship Him alone, they will say, no. No, we're not. Are we all together, brothers? So they didn't come with uluhiyyah. That's what they didn't come with. Sahih? Are you all together, brothers? The third one is what? Allah has names. He has names. And each name, every single name, there is a characteristics in it. Each name there is a what? Each name there's a characteristics in it. Jazakallah khairan. Pay attention to that. Allah, how many names do we know that He has? See how I asked that question? I didn't say how many names does Allah have. I said how many names of Allah do we know that He has? 99 is what we know. Those are not only His names. It's got more than that. But these are the 99 that we know. Each of those 99 are not just names. What are they? Characteristics are in it. Ar-Rahman has a characteristics in it. What's the characteristics in it? Ar-Rahman is merciful. So we affirm the name and the attribute for Him. And we single Him in it. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does everybody understand this? Has everyone understood this? Now we've understood the first name That's a synonym of Aqeedah. What is it? Tawheed. Do we now know what Tawheed means? I'm going to now mention books that are written in Tawheed. Classic books, okay. From those books are, again it's in your notes inshallah ta'ala, is the kitab written by Ibn Mandah. Ibn Mandah has a kitab called Kitab al-Tawheed. And he means by it Aqeedah. Ibn Khuzaymah has a kitab called what? Ibn Khuzaymah has a kitab called Kitab al-Tawheed. He's using the name Tawheed, but what does he mean? Aqeedah. It's a synonym. It's interchangeably used. You can call it Tawheed if you want. You can call it Aqeedah if you want. Are we all together? What's the second name that is given to Tawheed? Aqeedah. The second name that is used for Aqeedah, Usuluddin. The term Usuluddin is used. So the second name is what? Usul. Usuluddin is also a term used for Aqeedah. What is it used for? It's used for Aqeedah. So some scholars, they don't call it Aqeedah. They call it Usuluddin. Some scholars, what do they call it? Tawheed. And some scholars, what do they call it? So if you hear Aqeedah, Tawheed and Usuluddin, they are interchangeably used. What are they? They're all used. If you say I'm now studying Tawheed, no problem. If you say I'm studying Aqeedah, no problem. If you say I'm studying Usuluddin, no problem. It means the same. Usuluddin is compounded of two words. One, which is usul, and the second one is what? Deen. Usul is ma yubna alayhi ghayru. It's a foundation, whatever is built upon it. So usul means foundation. Ad-deen, what does it mean? Deen means? What does deen mean? It means religion. That's technically. What does it linguistically mean? Way, deen. Any other? What does deen mean linguistically? Faith, that's technically. Linguistically. Recompense. Linguistically, nope. Islam. That's technically. Remember, everything has a... Arabs were using the word deen before the word Islam came. So what do they mean? No. Deen comes from the word khudu'. Dan al-ardu, the Arabs would say. ما معنى دان الأرض? The earth humbled itself when it was walked on. Are you with me? And then the word deen, linguistically according to the Arabs, what does it mean? Khudu', to humble, soften, humility, humbleness. That's what it linguistically meant according to the Arabs. So when you become a Muslim, what do? Submission, right? That's what it means. أي ذل وخضع. Does that make sense? Again, brothers, I really ask of you all, every term that you see, look for the linguistic and the technical meaning. It's important. Sah? Give time. What does it mean linguistically? What were the Arabs saying before this? And now that the Sharia came, what did it call it? Are we all together? You'll start to learn a lot. Like in the Sharia, what does it mean? طاعته فيما أمر وامتثال طاعته فيما أمر. Following Allah, everything which He commanded you to do. And واجتناب ما نهى عنه وزجر. And stay away from that which He prohibited you. And to believe in everything He informed you. Those are the three. Obeying Him in what He told you to do, staying away from what He told you to stay away from, and believing in everything He told you. That's what Islam means. That's what deen means to us. That's a side point. So again, the word usuluddin is the second thing that's used for Aqeedah. We mentioned Tawheed, we're now mentioning what? Usuluddin is compounded of what? Two words. The first one is what? Usul. The singular is what? Asal. Usul is plural, asal is singular. What does asal mean? Foundation. What does deen mean? Three things. Just told you right now. What does deen mean? Three things. Following everything Allah commanded you to do. Allah told you to do this. Okay. The second one is stay away from everything Allah told you to stay away from. The third one is believing in everything Allah told you. Allah told you about Day of Judgment, you haven't seen it yet, believe it. Allah told you about angels, you haven't seen it, believe it. Allah told you what has already happened about Musa and Fir'aun existed, believe it. That's what deen means. You come with those three. Are you with me? Does that make sense? Now we're going to move on to, who was the first to use the word usuluddin and say it's called Aqeedah means usuluddin? They say the first to use it was Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah. They say Imam al-Shafi'i was the first rahimahullah ta'ala. The last one that we're going to take inshallah ta'ala before we go for the question and answers is the third one today we're going to take is Sunnah. What are we going to say? The third one is Sunnah. Sunnah is used as Aqeedah. Before I move on Sunnah, I forgot to mention books that are written in Usuluddin with that title. Al-Ibana, written by Abil Hasan al-Ash'ari, and also Al-Ibana, Al-Sughra, written by who? Ibn Battah al-Akbari. It's in your notes, right? Is all of this not on your notes? Huh? The answers the whole point is to discuss the answers inshallah ta'ala. Lakin, the kitab is Al-Usuluddin, written by Abil Hasan al-Ash'ari. He has a kitab called Al-Ibana fi Usul al-Diyana. Abil Hasan al-Ash'ari. So he used the term Usuluddin. Who also used it? A scholar by the name of Ibn Battah al-Akbari rahimahullah, Ukburi rahimahullah. He also has a book on the term Usuluddin. He has a kitab called Al-Ibana as well, and Usul al-Diyana, like Abil Hasan al-Ash'ari, same name. But it's well known as Ibana al-Sughra. Also, Abu Hatim al-Razi, there's a kitab called Usul al-Sunnati wa-Diyana, which is known as Aqeedah al-Raziyain. Okay. Has everyone understood that? We're now going to move on to the last one today, inshallah ta'ala, that we need to know, which is interchangeably used, a synonym of what? Al-Aqeedah. What is it? As-Sunnah. The term As-Sunnah is used as Aqeedah. Again, MashaAllah Mabarik. Who knows what Sunnah means linguistically? Hayya? Fadala. It means way, good. Any other person know any other word? Path. That's correct. Tariq, path, naam. Huh? A tradition. MashaAllah Mabarik. We have two here. Huh? Guidance. The Arabs, when they use the word Sunnah fil lugha, in the language, three usage. Sunnah means linguistically, according to the Arabs, before Islam came, three meanings. The first one is At-tariqatul masluka, the path that's taken. At-tariqatul masluka, the path that you take, or a path, is called Sunnah. A Sunnah is called a path. That's one. We've heard it. Allah Mabarik. The second one is as-sirah. A person's biography is their Sunnah. Sunnah is sirah, biography. Are we all together? Sirah, biography, linguistically is Sunnah. Third one is, as our brother mentioned over there, al-'adatu allati la tatakhallaf. If something happens and it never changes, and this is what's always happening, this is a Sunnah. As Allah said in the Quran, Sunnat Allah This is the sunnah of Allah, He doesn't change it. It's the way that Allah does things, subhanahu wa ta'ala. When He talks about how He destroys nations when they disobey Him. When Allah spoke about the prophets, what did He say? Sunnata man qad. This is the sunnah of what? Those who came before. So when a nation go against Allah's command and they disobey Allah, what does Allah do? He brings a punishment. This is the sunnah of Allah, we say. Meaning this is the norms and the things that norms. Those are the three meanings that the Arabs use the word as sunnah. Does that make sense? The first one was what? At-tariqatul masluka. Second one is what? As-sirah. Third one is al-'adah التي لا تتخلف ولا تتبدل. Which one in Arabic? So now we've learnt the word sunnah linguistically. What does it mean technically? Oh, this is a problem now. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. Sunnah is used technically by different scholars of different fields. Are we all together? The scholars in the religion are different fields, right? Different fields. Like the scholars who deal with fiqh. When they use the word sunnah, they mean what? The opposite of wajib. Meaning, you don't really have to do it. As a lot of us know it as. You don't really have to do it. So if somebody comes up to you and says, Akhi, this is sunnah. Oh, Allahumma barik. So I don't have to do it. That one is according to only one group of scholars who mean that. Who is it? Huh? The fuqaha. The jurists, when they say sunnah, and you're reading a fiqh book. And brothers, this is very important. Based on learning the definition of words. When you open a particular science, you know what these people mean it. Are we all together? It's one word. Sunnah means different in different sciences. So when you're reading fiqh, what do you need to do? Understand that fiqh means something to these people. But you're reading an Aqeedah book and the word sunnah is mentioned. Are you going to say it's the opposite of wajib? No. It's not the opposite of wajib. Are we all together? So it's important that you learn definition of words. وَلِذَلِكَ one of the biggest reasons why people become corrupt is because of not defining a term correctly. And we're living at a time when terms need to be defined first before a discussion is opened. What's the definition of that word according to you? Are we all together? So sunnah linguistically means something, and then istilah and technically each scholar of different sciences, they define it differently. The scholars who deal with fiqh, halal and haram, they use the word sunnah as to be the opposite of what? Wajib. The opposite of obligation. Meaning, they say that sunnah means if you do it, you get rewarded, and if you leave it, you will not get punished. Does that make sense? That's according to the fuqaha. Like according to the scholars of i'tiqad and the scholars of aqeedah, the story is different. They mean the opposite of bid'ah. The opposite of what? Innovation. They mean the opposite of what? Innovation. So when books of aqeedah, when you read, this is a sunnah, they mean this is the way the Prophet did it, and anything other than this is an innovation. Not that you can do it, no you can't. Are we all together? So again, fuqaha, sunnah is the opposite of what? Wajib. Scholars of aqeedah, the sunnah is the opposite of what? Bid'ah. Another group of scholars, they're called the usuliyin, those who deal with a subject called usul al-fiqh. What are they called? Usuliyin. They deal with a topic called Usulul Fiqh. When they say Sunnah, they mean Masdarut Talaqi. Where do you take a religion from? As in the Quran and Sunnah and Ijma' and Qiyas al-Sahih. They mean Masdarut Talaqi, where you take a religion from. Usuliyin use the word Sunnah in that context, where you take a religion from. Does that make sense? Scholars of fiqh, they refer to it as anything that's opposite to wajib. And the scholars of Aqeedah, Sunnah is the opposite of what? Bid'ah. Does that make sense? ولذلك when the Prophet ﷺ said, عَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي, upon you is my sunnah. What does he mean here? Does he mean the only voluntary things that we need to do? The Prophet used the word sunnah. What did he say? Alaykum? Alaykum bisunnati. No, he means my speech, my actions are upon you. My way of life, the way I was, is upon you. Are we all together? And what I believed, you have to believe. Does that make sense? We've now, inshallah ta'ala, tackled these points. Now, inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to take questions from you all. Faddal, what's the question? Usuliyin is the Masdarut Talaqi. Masdarut Talaqi means what? The source in which you take your religion from. Where do we take our religion from when we're only? Four places we take our religion from, right? Quran, Al-Kitabu, and then As-Sunnah, and Al-Ijma', consents, and Al-Qiyas As-Sahih. As-Sahih. So, Al-Kitab, As-Sunnah, Al-Qiyas, Al-Ijma' is Qiyas. So when the Usuliyin say As-Sunnah, what do they actually mean? They mean one of the places that you take your religion from. One of the four places which you take your religion from. Are we all together? Is dhuhr wajib? Yeah? Is dhuhr obligatory? Do you have to pray dhuhr? Do we have to pray dhuhr? What about, is there a difference of opinion on this issue? Huh? So there's ijma'. No one can go against it. No one can come and say, I looked at the Quran and it doesn't clearly show that dhuhr is wajib or not. We say this mas'ala is mujma'un alayh. Consent. Min ladun sahaba, from the time of the companions till today, there's a unanimous agreement that Salatul Dhuhr is wajib, and that you have to pray. Are we all together? So ijma' closes the door of anyone saying, I looked at the Quran and I looked at the Sunnah and for me it doesn't seem that way. No, no, no. Once there comes a consent, there's no path open for you. Are we all together? Because Allah said, وَمَن يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولِ مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ الْهُدَى وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ نُوَلِّهِ مَا تَوَلَّى وَنُصْلِهِ جَهَنَّمَ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. That's another discussion. We're not studying Usulul Fiqh or Fiqh right now, we're studying Aqeedah. Any other question? Aqeedah. So what did we say Aqeedah? What does it actually mean? It means to connect and believe in your heart Allah, the angels, the 6 articles of faith, and the 3 that we mentioned here. That you tie these concepts in your heart, how the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah documented it in their books. Are we all together? Which they took from the Quran and the Sunnah. Say that again. According to the scholars of I'tiqad, Sunnah means I'tiqad. It means belief. That's it. Wherever you those 6 articles and the 3, for them that's Sunnah. According to the scholars of Aqeedah. ولذلك you have a kitab called Kitab al-Sunnah by who? Khalal. You have a Kitab al-Sunnah by who? Imam al-Barbahari Sharh al-Sunnah. Imam Ahmad Rahimah al-Usul al-Sunnah. You have Kitab al-Sunnah by his son Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Are you with me? Sarih al-Sunnah by Ibn Jarir al-Tabari. So you have Kitab al-Sunnah, and all of it's Aqeedah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Opposite to bid'ah. So if they say this is Sunnah, they mean if you do opposite to this, you're falling into innovation. Are we all together? In other words, when the Prophet ﷺ said to the companions, سَتَفْتَرِقُ أُمَّتِي عَلَى 73 فِرْقَةٍ, my ummah will be divided into 73 sects, 73 groups. كُلُّهَا فِي النَّارِ, all of the groups are in the hellfire, إِلَّا وَاحِدَ, except one. The companions, they said, قَالَ مَنْ هِيَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, who's this one group that's going to be saved? The statements that came from the Prophet ﷺ, one narration says that he said, Al-Jama'ah, the group. What did he say? The group. The scholars, they asked, who were the group that day? Him and his companions. Another riwayah explains that. What did he say? Man kana ala mithli ma ana alayhi al-yawm wa ashabi. Anyone who's upon that which I and my companions are upon. So what I'm upon means my sunnah, and the sunnah of my rightly guided khulafa and companions. So if you want to be saved, you don't have to be from a particular country, from a particular background. You don't have to look in a particular way. All that is needed from you is to be upon the way that the Prophet was upon and the companions were upon. You don't have to sign a contract somewhere. You don't have to be part of a particular group and have a particular name or dress in a particular way. None of that. All that is needed from you is to be upon the way that the Prophet was and his what? And his companions. And then the scholars, when they Aqeedah, they mean that Sunnah. That way is the Sunnah. And anything other than that is innovation. Does that make sense? Has everyone understood that point? And then when ulama al-Aqeedah say Sunnah, they mean the Prophet's way and his companions' way. That's Sunnah. Anything other than that, what is it? Innovation. Anything other than that is newly invented matters. Sahih? So manhaj, is it the same as the word Aqeedah? Or are they interchangeably used? Manhaj and Aqeedah, are they both the same? Scholars, they say that i'tiqad, Aqeedah and manhaj are synonyms that can be used interchangeably. But it's also a difference as well. The difference is Aqeedah is the theoretical side and manhaj is the practicality now. The applying of what you learn. Does that make sense? So Aqeedah is what? The theory. Because all of these 6 that we mentioned, they're all beliefs in your heart. And the 3 that we mentioned, what are they? Concepts that you believe. Theory. Take the theories in. Manhaj is now you apply. Hey, faddal. Go apply the Aqeedah that you learnt. Apply in what way? By respecting the companions. Let's see you respect it. Are you with me? At-taraddi an as-sahaba radiyallahu anhu. That's manhaj. You're applying what you learnt. So it's not just theory, but it's what? That application, they call it manhaj. Does that make sense? Even the word tawheed, even though it's interchangeably used with Aqeedah, there's also a difference as well. There's a difference. How many articles of faith did we just say right now there were? What's the first one? Tawheed is only that one. And tu'mina billah is only Tawheed. And Aqeedah is all of them, all the 6 together. Are you with me? So which one's more holistic? Aqeedah and Tawheed is specific. But they also can be used interchangeably. Because there's a qa'idah which is إِذَا اجْتَمَعَا اِفْتَرَقَا وَإِذَا افْتَرَقَا اجْتَمَعَا. But we don't want to go into that right now. It's too much, okay? We don't want to go into that. We just want to know Tawheed and Aqeedah mean the same. Maybe inshallah ta'ala in our next levels we'll study the differences. Let's first of all know that they're the same for now. Does that make sense? It'll be beneficial for you because knowing the books, even if you don't memorize it, to note it down will help you in the future. If you want to look into this issue more, you will always know where to go to. It will always benefit you. At least to know 1 or 2 books that are written in this particular name is very good. Are you all? How did the muhaddithun, that slipped my mind, barakallah feek. The muhaddithun, they define it as ما أضيف إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من قول أو فعل أو تقرير أو صفة خلقية أو خلقية. Anything that's attributed to the Prophet ﷺ in terms of speech, action. ما أضيف إلى النبي من قول, speech. ما أضيف إلى النبي من قول أو فعل, action. أو صفة, or characteristics. Whether those characteristics are two types, the way Allah created him. The way that the Prophet ﷺ used to walk, according to the muhaddithin, that's sunnah. The way he used to eat. The way that when he would speak to somebody, he would turn his whole body. And the Prophet ﷺ never talked to somebody from the corner of his head. Some people, when they talk to you, they look at you and say, okay. If Nabi Muhammad was talking to somebody, he would move fully and look at the person, and then he would talk to them. According to scholars of hadith, this is a sunnah. Are we all together? If the Prophet ﷺ was fascinated with something, قَلَّبَ كَفَّيْهِ, he would turn his hands around like this. This is a sunnah according to the who? Scholars of hadith. Are we all together? Also his manners and how he carried himself. According to scholars of hadith, what is this? It's a sunnah. So you see, each subject, each people, they define something different. Fuqaha, they define it as ما يثاب فاعله ولا يعاقب على تركه. The person who does it gets rewarded, and if he leaves it, he doesn't get punished. Sunnah means voluntary, as we call it. It's a synonym of what? Nawafil. Voluntary acts. Like the sunnah before Fajr. We call it sunnah before Fajr, right? Because you don't have to pray it. But it's highly recommended. When we say sunnah before Fajr, what language, whose usage are we using right now? Fuqaha. We're talking about the fuqaha. Are we all together? But if somebody says to you, for example, it's a sunnah to eat with your right hand, what do they mean by that? Is it voluntary to eat with your right hand? Do you have to eat with your right hand? Here, don't understand the word sunnah that I just used here according to the what? I'm using according to the muhaddithun. I'm not using according to the fuqaha. Are we all together? Pay attention to that. Well, some people, they hear it and they say sunnah. Oh, Allah barik, I don't have to do it. They all believe it's a source of legislation. They don't deny it. What's the four categories? The sunnah. The muhaddithun, the usuliyin, the fuqaha, and the scholars of Aqeedah. It's for all of them. Or all of them, yes. All of them, yes. All see it as a source of evidence, sahih. But the scholars of Aqeedah will not be talking about sunnah as a source of legislation. That's not their discussion now. If you want to talk about whether it's a source of legislation, you talk about that in usul al-fiqh. You get it? Scholars of Aqeedah, you've already accepted it as a source of legislation. Fadda. Wa alaikum as-salam. When we're sitting together, it's not from the sunnah to say salamu alaikum. Because we're all here together. We were together. Salam is for when somebody comes in and somebody leaves. Or it's the first time I'm seeing somebody. Or an object gets between me and you while we're walking. Then to see me again, you say salamu alaikum. But in a gathering, we're all together. If you come in, you say salamu alaikum. But if you're sitting somewhere, it's not from the sunnah to say salamu alaikum. Sunnah meaning here, it's a what? No, it's a bid'ah. It's an innovation to do it. When you meet somebody, it's not your job to test them. You don't test people when you meet them. And note down their aqeedah. What do you believe regarding this? This is not your job to test people. The asl for the Muslim, the person, is that they're free from criticism. The asl is salama. Sahih. Al-bara'atul asliya. You judge the person bima dhahara lana, that which he brings out to you. Are we all together? But you do have the rights when you're studying with somebody, and now that you want to take knowledge from that person. We're not talking about the general mass. We're talking about a person you want to take knowledge from. You have the right, as a student, to ask that person Aqeedah related questions, in order to know that you're taking your religion from a pure source. But you don't say that to a person you just met in a cafe shop and you're sitting, or you meet them in a mall and you ask them Aqeedah related questions. Are we all together? As for the person that you're taking knowledge from, you have the right to ask them Aqeedah related question because of the statement of the Salaf. إن هذا الأمر دين فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم. You don't want to take the wrong concepts into your religion. So you have the right to ask it, but you have to watch the way that you ask, and the person should be more than happy to answer your questions. He should be what? Facilitating and more than happy to answer your question. You shouldn't be worried to answer it. ولذلك the scholars were before asked about their Aqeedah, and they would write books. Imam al-Muzani, the great Shafi'i scholar, he wrote his kitab Sharh al-Sunnah when he was asked about his Aqeedah. He didn't hesitate. He wrote straight away. He said, this is my belief. Are we all together? And Imam al-Tahawi rahimahullah, Imam al-Tahawi, the great scholar, he wrote, he's not only his Aqeedah, but Aqeedah of his Imams, Muhammad ibn Hasan al-Shaybani and Abu Hanifa. He said, this is the belief that they held, and this is the belief I hold. Are we all together? Okay. The asl is when it comes to issue of ibadat, when it comes to matters of worshipping Allah and getting close to Allah, the asl is you're not allowed to do it unless you have evidence. Does that make sense? If it's an act of worship, you're not allowed to do it unless you have what? Evidence. That's the default position. Because why? Ibadah is based on two things. Something Allah loves and is what? Pleased with. Why are you doing this? Because Allah loves it and Allah is pleased with it. How do you know Allah loves this, and how do you know Allah is pleased with this if you don't have an evidence for it? Only Allah can tell you, I love this and I'm pleased with this. Sah? So when it comes to matters of ibadah, what do you need? Evidence. Are we all together? What do you need? Evidence. So when you do something, say, my evidence is this. Allah said this and the Messenger said this. Does that make sense? So the person who does an act of worship, he needs to provide the evidence. The opposite is when it comes to worldly issues. The worldly issues, the default position is that you can't do it unless proven otherwise. If me and you are walking in the middle of the desert and we see an animal that we've never seen, it's got 5 eyes. First time we've ever seen it. The default position is that we can eat it, unless you bring an evidence that I can't eat it. Does that make sense? Huh? This is called istishab, biqa' ma kana ala ma kana. When it comes to business, what's the asal? Business trading. What's the asal is permissible. A business trading, the asal is that it's permissible and you can do this kind of trading, and the person who says to you, it's haram, you can't buy this or you can't sell this, they have to bring the evidence. They shouldn't send you the evidence and send you homework. No, you say to them, you've now said it's haram, bring the evidence. Lakin the ibadat, the acts of worship, is the opposite. You're not allowed to do it unless you bring an evidence. Does that make sense?
So can you please repeat the same point?
Repeat the one question one more time.
Can you make this point clear?
Which clear? Which point?
In terms of religion, what is the base of the
The qa'idah is al-aslu fil ibadat al-tawaqquf. Ama al-aslu fil ibadat al-hadar. The asl in ibadat is that you're not allowed to do it. Meaning, You can't do something in the religion unless you have evidence for it. If it's something you want to get closer to Allah by, you have to have evidence for it. Does that make sense? The evidence is قال Allah, قال الرسول. Allah said and His Messenger said. صح? As for worldly issues, you are allowed to marry whoever you want. You are allowed to buy and sell whatever you want. You are allowed to eat whatever you want. All of these are permissibility unless proven otherwise. Are you with me? You can eat what type of food you like. If somebody comes up to you and says to you, pork is haram, you have to say, what's your evidence? And then he has to bring you the ayah and says to you, khamar, khinzir, all of them are haram. When he brings the evidence, you say, sami'na wa ata'na, I hear and I obey. Does that make sense? So Sunnah here means Aqeedah. It's outside the Aqeedah, but that's the linguistic meaning of Seerah. So in other words, yes, anyone who goes against the Sunnah, according to the scholars of Aqeedah, na'am, he's out of the way of the Prophet ﷺ. He's upon innovation. According to the scholars of Aqeedah, na'am. But not according to the Fuqaha. Fuqaha is you can leave the Sunnah if you want to. Shall we stop here inshallah ta'ala? Oh, very big yes, na'am. طريقة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. نعم. I think we have another class, right? Last question here.
My question is connected to the brother's question. How to test your own Aqeedah? For example, in my own country, when somebody says Allah is everywhere, they mean to say He has
صحيح.
What we have learned from the childhood is that certain set of sentences and then people translate it in different ways. So how do you test
These kind of issues, inshallah ta'ala, as you can all see, we're now starting a madkhal, an introduction, right? Our plan is to do an overview. These are issues, inshallah ta'ala, that will be tackled more in related to a particular book if we're studying it. Does that make sense? If we come to a particular book and we come to these masail, these particular issues, we'll bring the evidence, we'll discuss it, we'll go through it in more details. I don't want to take away from it by mentioning an answer now, but it doesn't suffice properly because we haven't taken it in a particular book. The point for this right now isn't to study Aqeedah. We're not studying Aqeedah. Are we studying Aqeedah? No. We're doing an overview of Aqeedah. What does it mean? What are the books that are written in it? How did it format? What stages did it go through? So later when we study Aqeedah book, you understand very well what the subject deals with. Does that make sense? And last but not least, the ultimate goal of Aqeedah is that what we all want at the end of the day is that Allah takes everybody to what? To Jannah. Our goal is that Allah guides and gives everybody a place in what? Jannah. Our goal is not that we make it to Jannah and everybody else, you're destroyed and you're from the deviated group. That's not our aim. Does that make sense? So when you learn these Aqeedah points, your biggest effort and your goal is to take the best approach in making sure that you install this information in the best of way. Some people have grown up not studying Aqeedah in their entire life. And if you just come in a wise way to explain these points, some people are willing to take it. They've never studied it. They've never heard of it. And if you come and you explain it calmly and collectively, and you bring these points with the evidence, inshallah ta'ala, which you'll see, they are more than happy to take it. They're what? They're more than happy to take it.